Hi everyone. I want to talk a little bit about the Aristotelian appeals, logos, ethos, and pathos and your paper. And I want to focusedly talk about the thesis and a sample body paragraph, which I'm going to show you I wrote on ethical appeal, evaluation, and analysis. So first, I just want to show you this handout. This is the handout from the week 3 module, which hopefully everybody opened up and read through. I love this chart on page 6 because it breaks down in a nice visual format logical, ethical, and emotional appeals and how to think about it. So this is the type of evidence that can be used for logical appeal, things like reasons, analogies, definitions, factual data, quotations, etc. And the way an author develops ethical appeal or credibility might be the way they set up or explain their background or where they've been published. That might be outside of the article, actually. They might not actually refer to it itself in the writing. Where do they seem sincere or fair-minded, especially if they're acknowledging counter-arguments, not just their own argument. So this last one, emotional appeal, is where there you might notice the way the diction's being used. Is there any emotionally loaded language, sarcasm, attacking anybody in particular? So pay attention to where it might emotionally evoke someone's hope or disappointment or frustration or anger, causing them to maybe want to react, okay? So make sure you look at this because it explains more how to talk about logical, ethical, and emotional appeals. And in your paper, I just want to emphasize to you that you're aiming to not use the Greek terms, because if you use the Greek terms, logos, ethos, and pathos, and some people say pathos, I've heard it both ways, you're going to have a harder time meaningfully talking about it. There's a risk there. It doesn't mean you can't. It just, why use Greek terms when you can just use plain, straight up English? You're writing these essays, and I want to be able to tell that you understand them. So let's go ahead and look at a sample thesis. And it's on Rifkin's article, A Change of Heart About Animals, which on this content page you should quickly preview, because then you'll have an idea of what his argument is about. And this is my evaluative thesis on how he effectively uses the appeals, okay? This is me coming in and evaluating how effective I think Rifkin is. So I'm going to read this to you and highlight some things to pay attention to. Rifkin uses a variety of evidence, from case studies to governmental solutions, and the way some of these are set up are highly effective in persuading his audience. His strongest appeals are where he elicits our emotions and challenges our ethical principles and how we treat animals. However, other evidential details are weak in their logical explanations. Examining these strong and weak areas determines if, overall, Rifkin's argument is successful in convincing us to change the way we view animals and act to preserve them from cruelty. And so what I've done here is, number one, my thesis is not just one sentence. It's several, right? I've got like 3 sentences in here. Your thesis can also be more than one sentence. That way you let your ideas sort of get better crafted and let each idea breathe on their own. What I've done here is sort of talk about evidence, right? This is the evidence. And I am showing that I understand it's the way the evidence is set up that lets me focus on how the appeals are doing. And so here I am concentrating on how effective or successful he is in persuading his audience. I'm not forgetting about audience here. And I am going to come in and evaluate that. So you can see here, this is me coming in and talking about emotional appeal and ethical appeal. I'm saying these 2 are the strongest ones. And then I come in and say, well, look, his logical appeal just isn't as strong. I actually come in and critically say I think it's weak. And I can say this without even using I in any way. And then I don't give it all away, but I do come full circle here and just say, this is going to help us kind of come to this conclusion whether or not his argument is successful overall. So, and I bring in the heart of the matter as well, right? Like, so here's the heart of the matter, and I'm just going to put that in pink. Here's the heart of the matter. It's about the cruelty and how we treat animals. If I just come in and write a thesis, like what you don't want to do basically is write Pearlstein's argument is effective in ethos, pathos, and logos appeals. Like you don't want to write a thesis like that, right? So when you're evaluating it, do not oversimplify your thesis to something like Pearlstein uses, we'll just say uses effective appeals to, even if you just use English, right? Logic, emotions, and ethics. So this is what you don't want to do, right? Because it's too easy. It doesn't involve much critical effort. It's letting me know that they're all effective to the same extent, which is not true. So the appeals, let me cross this out actually. The 3 Aristotelian appeals are not all equally effective in persuasion. So your job is to come in and evaluate them. So remember, you can think about appeals as, are they ineffective? Are they, let's see, you could say somewhat effective, fairly effective, or maybe very or highly effective. So see how there's like different degrees of which appeals are effective. Some of your authors, Pearlstein and Gibbs Jr. and Bidwell, they don't use every single appeal to the same extent. And as you think about the way they set up their evidence, what is it that makes it an imperfect argument? No argument in rhetoric is perfect. So critique the argument. Where is it strong, right? Where could it be stronger? Are we missing certain evidences? So that's why I'm showing you this evaluative thesis, because I'm blending the heart of the matter. I'm not forgetting what the subject matter is that we're talking about. Like your subject matter is about people's lives. It's about careers and pathways and how people are going to make money to support their families. This is really important. Your introduction should not be all about rhetoric and the appeals, because what's going to happen is you're going to have a really dry paper. So I've blended the rhetoric. This is the rhetoric. And I'm blending it with the heart of the matter. And then here's more rhetoric. And then here's the heart of the matter. And that to me is like what I think a strong thesis, in my opinion. It's just my opinion, but if I'm trying to write a thoughtful thesis, I think that's what it should, maybe try to achieve, is this kind of explanation, this argument that you're coming in and making. Remember that the author has their own argument. Rifkin is arguing that we should treat animals better and see how and to humanize them, because they have feelings and thoughts and emotions in their article if you go and review it. But that's his argument. That's not the same as my argument. I need to follow the essay prompts. I need to come in and evaluate the way he argues, right? That's my job as I'm pretending I'm the student. I'm pretending I'm you in this act of writing the essay. So I hope that helps you think about your thesis. I'm going to go on and read you a body paragraph on ethical appeal. This is me just focusing on developing one body paragraph on ethical appeal. And there's a lot to unpack. If I use language from this chart, it's not easy, I think, the first time you do this if you've never come across rhetoric. So I can help you with this if you're not sure. But I actually looked at this chart for for how I can involve more of this language. Like, okay, where is the author fair-minded? Where is he knowledgeable? Does he address oppositional views? Does he seem morally or ethically likable as he talks about better treatment of animals? Does he use appropriate language? Does he have appropriate vocabulary, etc., right? So I'm thinking about all this as I think about, okay, how effective is the author's development of credibility? To what extent, the question is, to what extent do I trust this author to speak on this subject matter, right? So I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to highlight some things to pay attention to in terms of how I develop this paragraph. It's this long. It's a page, okay? There's no set number of, sentences in a good body paragraph. Of course, I'm not going to prescribe this to you, but I just want to show you what happens when you just focus on one appeal and you're not thinking about all the ways in which the other appeals overlap in these instances, because I know that's hard to do. I had to really focus on just ethical appeal alone. And so pretend this is a body paragraph, by the way, before I start, pretend this is a body paragraph that is coming after an analysis of emotional appeal. This is me transitioning from that, trying to create a nice flow. In addition to his strong emotional appeal, to fully persuade us of his argument that animals should be treated better, Rifkin develops his ethical appeal fairly well. Not only does he provide examples that establish a foundation of credibility and trust, but also he uses language that earns him respect and demonstrates his fair-mindedness. For instance, to support the claim that pigs are one type of animal deserving humane treatment, Rifkin refers to a governmental institution known as the European Union. They have taken such studies to heart and outlawed the use of isolating pig stalls by 2012. This means that with help from organized legislative bodies like the European Union, the cruel treatment of pigs and other animals can be eradicated. Rifkin heavily implies that we in the United States could improve our awareness and legal tactics, and this approach is not by any means off-putting. In fact, it is successful in advancing his claim as well as his credibility. Readers who are not familiar with inhumane treatment issues may then trust Rifkin as a credible source of noteworthy factual information. He demonstrates further expertise on this subject by acknowledging a counterargument. Some philosophers and animal behaviorists have long argued that other animals are not capable of self-awareness because they lack a sense of individualism. Not so, according to new studies. This supports the claim that animals are self-aware, and by using a rebuttal in his main argument, Rifkin shows us he is open-minded and inclusive of others' perspectives. However, because he does not specifically cite the source of the new studies, he partially undermines the credibility he is attempting to build. Policymakers, animal activists, and other readers of this article want concrete knowledge. Who conducted the studies and what is their expertise? When were these studies conducted? Despite these lingering questions, because Rifkin provides numerous animal examples and some legal reference, his ethically founded argument is rather convincing overall. Our community needs to protect the well-being of animals because they are, in many aspects, similar to us. And I'm not sure if maybe well-being is supposed to be maybe 2 words. Okay, so this is a paragraph that I wrote because I like to put myself in the student's position of having to write, okay, is this possible? Can I just focus on one appeal at a time and demonstrate that I understand ethical appeal and how it works? So I'm going to highlight a few things, and I've only got another minute left here before I get cut off, and then I'm going to do a part 2 to this video. So I'm going to do what I can here. I just want to highlight, actually, I'm just going to underline, I'll just highlight. I'm going to highlight I'm just going to underlining I think is better. If I'm going to underline where there are words that are related to ethical appeal. I make it clear from the get-go that I'm talking about ethical appeal. I talk about the establishing of credibility and trust. I talk about respect, okay, and fair-mindedness. All this relates to ethical appeal, right? Let's see, I mentioned credibility again. I mention trust and him being credible, but I'm using it in different ways. I'm not just repeating myself. I'm explaining it. And I talk about further, he's demonstrating his expertise on this subject.